Okay, so good afternoon everybody, and welcome back to the final session of this wonderful conference. So Klaus and I will be chairing this afternoon, and we're very impressed to see we're starting on time. I just hope we'll be able to finish on time as well. Without further ado, we'll move on to the first paper this afternoon, Maria Dobrovольskaya, talking about human archaeology, conception as the base of multidisciplinary study with a humanitarian dominance. So, Maria.
Is it okay? Mm-hmm. Dear colleagues, topic of this conference is maybe unusual for example, my experience, because every time we try to talk about results of our study, new data, new hypotheses, and so on. But this conference about archaeology of 21st century, and it is very difficult to do choice about what to say, what is the most important in this grand task. And maybe it is interesting to think about some paradoxes in archaeology of the end of the 20th century, of the beginning of the 21st century. And one of these paradoxes is maybe topic of this presentation. The great creation of the past, which depicted in architecture, in fine art, preserved in cultural layers of archaeological sites, have always aroused great interest of researchers and public. How it's possible to compare with the very small and plain fragments of skeletal remains and maybe only ash? And why did this subject took such an important place in archaeology of the last decades? Probably because they can provide information to address the real interest of researchers, and this interest about human. What is these questions? And I would like to discuss about nature of these questions, what we ask about what we ask these remains. First of all, physical anthropologists, which studies the evolution of Homo and the biological diversity of ancient and modern humanity, science developed parallelly with archaeology. In the second half of the 20th century, and first of all, above the the American anthropologist school, and first of all, maybe Jane Dykstra, it's developed bioarchaeological trend that examines markers of person's lifestyle. And these marks these marks are biological characteristics, and it is subject in context of specific cultural tradition. By the way, in the Russian tradition of archaeology, this tent was also represented, and first of all in this well-known for us paleoecological ethno-ecological school. Unfortunately, these tragic events of the first half of the 20th century stopped development of these studies, and they began develop again more later. The last decades of the last century were very rich with bioarchaeology, and everybody who here now knows about it. And last year, in one of the very famous bioarchaeologists, Clark Spencer Larson, when he described the position of bioarchaeology, wrote about a few revolutions in bioarchaeology. First, you see this revolution at this slide. The first related to the possibility to reconstruction of physical activity. The second connected with development of paleopathology and study of nutrition and mobility. And third, with population history goes from paleogenomes. And fourth is genetic history of human disease. And in his paper, he wrote, the study of human archaeological remains today has little to do with the study until 19th century. And human remains were studied mostly as disciplinary manner in context of race identification. And then the appearance of new physical anthropology changed the face of this scientific direction. And one of the results of these revolutions is good perspective which Professor Clark Spencer Larson are waging for new century and nowadays. And I would like to add that the second, maybe very bright pattern of the study of the human remains connected with the paleo-DNA. We know that now the pages of journals are rich with the last reading of genomes and the reconstructions of migrations, of mixing different groups of ancient population and so on. And I would like to say a few words about last year book of one of the outstanding researcher in this field, David Reich. He wrote this book and said that it's very strange because he, as usually, he doesn't write books, he writes articles. Papers, but this is a very large common study about humans, who we are, how we got here. This is philosophic name, and it's not only paleogenetics results, but results addressed to humanity. First of all, yes, we have great results of study paleo-DNA, and you see that David Reich wrote about revolution too. I don't know why, but our specialists described history of archaeology as series of revolutions. I'm not sure, I think that it's more better, but first revolution addressed to radiocarbon dating, and second paleo-DNA sequencing and reading. And now he wrote about the main results, about the possibility to see process of natural selection and anthropogenesis, appearance of the Homo sapiens, and so on and so on. It's very interesting that last part of this book, last chapter of this book, names as Our Respect to Ancient Bones. And in this chapter, author told about some discussion with a rabbi and possibility to disturb human bones in graves. And it's a very big problem, I think, for author of this book. And the rabbi answered that all human graves are sacrificed, but there are special circumstances that make it permissible to open graves all along, as there is potential to promote understanding, to break down barriers between people. And it's a very important result of the long work of specialists in paleo-DNA. I think it's maybe Grand Prix for them, because it's results for mentality of modern humans. And last words of this book are: I see it as our role to midwife ancient DNA into the field that is not only for the geneticists, but also for archaeologists and public, to realize an extraordinary potential to reveal who we are. And to reveal who we are, I think it's the question and the field which are the most important for the study of human remains in archaeology, first of all. And now, after the end of the paleo-DNA revolution, I think we can to try to say about the main results. And I think that it's a common picture of the hybridization during anthropogenesis and mixing through the all territories and through all times, and the absence of the pure groups. And so this grand project of DNA, ancient DNA study, destroyed any base of the racism and Nazism, and it is a basic result. But we know that paleo-DNA is a very popular topic, and maybe it's funny, but time to time we can read name of the paper as number of genomes, yes, number of individuals, and maybe it is the more and more reading its as results. Yes, and we see that the possibility to read paleo DNA is changing faster and faster, and yes, we have a good perspective, and David Reich wrote that now we have about 7,000 individuals, and it's a very numerous group, but for all history of humanity, it's not very many, and so it's maybe time of collection of the data, and maybe so some hypotheses can be changed from 1 year to another. It's normal. It's maybe we compare with the time of the creation of the geographical maps in medieval time or in earlier periods when maps changed and the picture of the Earth changed very fast. And thank you so much. But for example, we can see the long arrows through the long distances, and these arrows demonstrate moving of these genes, but not moving of the humans. It's different questions, it's different topics, and so I think it's very important. Don't forget that genetic mixing, it's not history of mixing of the human groups, and temporal dynamics of the diet, it's not history of the nutrition and evolution of the pathogens, it's not history of the diseases, because from our research instrument, it's not real. It's not the same that the real historical process, and so I would like to formulate a few questions. What we discuss. With what is subject of our work, what is our instrument, and what is result of our study. First of all, we can be sure that when we have skeleton in some grave, in maybe cultural layer of the archaeological site, we have some remains of the real human who lived and died. When we have some collective grave, we can say that it's a group of individuals, but we don't know what identity puts in base of this collective grave, and now we need to find methods, maybe paleo DNA, maybe isotopic analysis, maybe paleo pathogens analysis, maybe another, to collect these methods and to answer to the question, what is the reason why these skeletons are together? Then, if we have skeletons of whole cemetery, in biology definitions we can say this is a paleo population, but it's not a real community of the humans. It's chronological sequence of the persons, and we don't know what is the base of this community. And every time we need, I think, it's very important to understand what is the reason why these persons are together in this cemetery. And, for example, if we try study or characterize the group of cemeteries, and we describe again paleo population because it's very formal position, and maybe we can say that it's humans who are connected with some archaeological culture, but it's not real explanation. It's not explanation why these humans are together on this territory in these cemeteries. And it seems that the purpose of the work with all these skeleton remains to estimate our possibility and realize our opportunities to answer to this question: who are these persons and why they are together? I'm not lucky with this. Yes, just. In any case, we know that the reason of the community of the humans in archaeological sites is connected with the culture. And now we try to describe, to think about this concept, culture. It's very basic, it's most basic concept in human life and in archaeology and so on. And so it's very, we have a lot of description of this phenomenon, but it's nothing. And so there is no doubt, because we can formulate two sides of the culture, two sides as coins. Yes, and its position of the person, position of human in culture is has two sides. For example, first of all, it's creator of the culture, and human is product of the culture. And it is the maybe base to thinking about study of the human remains, how to do this study. And position of culture as sphere and the culture as the product of the human activity, it's very important. But then not enough. We need to remember that our estimation of some human patterns is estimation of our modern mentality. For example, for us, what is very good, for example, is long time, long life, I don't know, a lot of money, large family, I don't know. For every culture, we have special preferences. but we don't know preferences of ancient cultures. And so we want to estimate life of some persons from archaeological sites, but we have no instrument to estimating from modern mentality. It's a very big question. And about these problems, I would like to discuss on the basis of some very short, very cheap examples. For example, example number first, it's burnt skeleton remains from the very famous Paleolithic site Тельмановская стоянка Костенки 8, and this is only small fragments of burnt bone. These fragments were discovered inside the dwelling on the level of the floor, and we with colleagues studied these remains, and results of it was connected with the describing few individuals and estimation of the condition of these bones. This burning of the bones, the temperature influence of these bones was connected not with the body. It was not burnt bodies, but skeletons, and so we can be sure that inside of this dwelling were preserved, we don't know why, but were preserved fragments of skeletons and 2 or 3 skulls of humans. And these humans has some maybe bioecological parameters. We reconstructed nutrition and diet of these individuals. It's as usual upper Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, and it is a big question why these skeletons were inside the dwelling. It's not grave, it's not burial site, but it was the, why these skeletons were inside. Maybe it's some sacral tradition, maybe something else, but it's very important that it was not bodies, but dry skeletons. And so it's principle another aspect to attention to these skeletal remains. Then a question about very famous osteological paradox. This paradox was described in the end of the last century and connected with the very healthy skeletons of the most part humans from Stone Age, from Upper Paleolithic, from Mesolithic period. And a paradox is because they are very, very healthy but died. And what is the reason of why they died? And of every generation of bioarchaeologists try to answer to this question, and now when we have possibility to work with pathogens, ancient diseases, with methods of biomolecular biomolecular biology, we have to think about poor immunity and variant of very fast diseases, but we don't know till the Monday because of this paradox, and so it's a reason of a lot of joy for this situation. But before understanding this paradox, we described the health of the Stone Age population, most of all in concrete situation, as very good. But now we are not sure that we were right. Then, for example, maybe last example, I'm very long, my speech is very long. When we have experience to work with the different monasteries, cemeteries, we could estimate the skeletons from different graves and with the burial rite, which are very typical for the monks. But biological patterns of these skeletons can be very, very different. Some of them characterized by very good physical development, the high level of the markers of the protein diet, and so on and so forth. And another can be characterized with a lifestyle as ascetic. And so it's a very interesting question, because some of these persons can be monk of the last day. It was the decision of the maybe some aristocratic persons, or another reasons of decision of the person to connect this last day with the monastery, with the future as monk in the life after death. And now we can think to this community of monks as to the principle different humans with a different lifestyle, but they decided to be in monasteries, cemeteries for their future in the life after death. And last example connected with the study of cremated bones. It's maybe most difficult material for some descriptions, but we from literature sources, from tacit description of the life of the barbaric population of the northern Europe, when we have read that the trees for the fire, it was very important what kind of the trees for the fire. It's not, we have no differentiation in some grave goods, in some other patterns of the burial ritual, only different type of trees for the fire. And for example, oak was the very expensive, very rich, very status type of tree, and another were not so expensive. And so we can to think about different graves. Maybe these graves very equal, but the ash of the oak can let us to suppose that this grave, this ash connected with the very important for this society person. And these examples I can continue to tell about different samples when we need to find special approach to estimate the position of this human, this person in coordinates of ancient culture. And so it is maybe very important to remember that culture is product of human activity, and culture is sphere of human life, and so we need to study human remains in understanding on this connection, and it is impossible without base of the archaeological approach and study human remains as archaeological source. And so I think it's maybe I would like to add last remark. Maybe it's very, very important to us today too, that maybe archaeology lost position as study of the past time, and now we know that archaeology study more contemporary sites and so on and so on. And now we have a lot of problems with the health of the modern population. For example, lactose deficiency, gluten intolerance, and so on and so on. And these problems have roots in the old past of the humanity. And study of this history of the nutrition, history of the transformation of the ecology of the surrounding of the humans can help us to estimate position of the modern human in modern surrounding. Why we have a lot of problems with the new variant of the food and so on and so on. Fast. And so, as a result of my long and very strange speech, I would like that the human remains in modern archaeology, it's not biological subject, it's not biological remains, but remains of the lives of the past, and so the humanitarian aspect of estimation of study, this is a fundamental parameters of future study of human in modern and in the past. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Maria, for that wonderful exploration of the potential, but also the challenges, really, of human remains, biological remains. We're a little bit short of time, but I think it would be good to have some questions. So could we have questions, please? If you could keep them a little bit short, that would be helpful. So questions. Yes, Sophia.
Thank you for this synthesis of the potential. In many ways, what is interesting just in realizing the potential of human remains and what they can tell us about individuals and societies. At the same time, the discussion about the ethical issues that arise also begins, and grows, becomes more and more important. And it is interesting that David Reich gave that example of the enlightened rabbi who said, fine, no problem, analyze the bones, but we know that in Israel, of all countries, there are large groups of people who will say that you should not touch human bones. And that is just an extreme example whereby those things have other problem. Analysis, just touching human bones, is sometimes problematic. So the issue is, just as we realize the potential, at the same time we realize the problems attached to human remains. So how will we deal with this in the 21st century?
I think it's a real problem. Yes, I think it's a real problem because yes, time to time we have it's not so simply to study and explain why we do it. But I think in future when we can tell about results of our study, and maybe our results can help to understanding the roots of some groups of population and help to for understanding of the unique history of the unique role of culture, for saving of identity, and maybe I don't know. It led us to open possibility to study new materials, but from another side, I know that we have a very rich collection, and I think it's maybe one of the most important tasks to save and to study all collection of human skeleton we have what we have, and maybe we have no more and more excavate human graves and more get new materials. I think we have a very rich heritage of this material, and we have, in any case, we have perspective to get very important and very interesting results of this study.
Another question. Do we have I was wondering, just quickly, whether you think the priority for future should be on very detailed studies of individuals, or whether the priority should be on bigger population-wide studies which are less in-depth, that cover larger numbers of people, given that we have finite resources?
I think it's not one against another, but I think that we have a very rich experience with the work with the numerous materials, and we not so good know phenomenon of human person, of archaeological person, and I think it most important task for the archaeology of the 21st century.
I think we need to move on, so thank you very much again, Maria.